All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo, and here we go. College football right around the corner. What a big Saturday we're looking forward to. Week 0. I mean, it's finally here. The final exhibition games are being played Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, obviously. And then the 53-man rosters will be set, and we will know who the practice squad guys are when it comes to Monday. And we're going to get ourselves ready for another great season of football, and it's just right around the corner. Guys, with all that being said, fire the cannon. I got to tell you, we said this yesterday to you guys. So all of the Power 4 conferences thought they would get together and say, hey, all these NFL guys that want to come back and play if they have eligibility left, they thought that they were going to avoid those guys from coming back and playing. Well, a Dallas judge yesterday said, hey, not so fast, as the great Lee Corso would say. Pump the brakes, guys. If there is eligibility left, just because you were on a pro roster does not mean you cannot go back to college. We said this yesterday to you. They're going to get their asses kicked in court, and you're going to see professional football players, like you do anyway on Saturdays, playing once again at the college level. Guys, this is a no-brainer here. And if you're some of the programs like Texas Tech, who is inviting some of these players, or LSU, you've got to really look at those programs are being progressive. Just because you don't like the idea and the notion that these guys are professionals and you're trying to save that stupid shield called being an amateur athlete, it's ridiculous. They know better. I got to tell you something else. Hand it to Lane Kiffin here. This guy got out in front of this. Boy, I'll tell you, the evil empire in college football right now is clearly LSU. Here's a guy that was really out in front of this. Lane Kiffin is the guy that's really out in front, and every other SEC program and other SEC teams are saying, hold on, wait a minute. That's just because they didn't think about it. I got to tell you, one thing that's been great for college sports has been Lane Kiffin. You have to hate this guy. And there's a part of me that actually is attracted to what he's doing there at LSU and Baton Rouge. Everybody wants a piece of LSU and Lane Kiffin now. I can't wait for that early game of the year on the schedule with Ole Miss when they go to Oxford. How great is that game going to be? This makes for appointment-setting television. College football right now is growing, and it is growing, and it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's a giant business. Professionals going back to being a professional. I told you this yesterday. We got a quarterback at the University of Miami, Darian Metz, who's now making $6.5 million a year. This guy's going to be making more money than Jacoby Brissett, who's the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Think about that for a second. It's insane. College sports is in a place right now where the genie's out of the bottle and people are trying to put her back in. It's over with. Professional sports is not only at the NFL level, but professional sports is at the college level, and you can't do anything about it. You got the Big Ten and the SEC, obviously the two horses that run college football, and there's the ACC and the Big 12. Those conferences right now can't beat people in court. These have been antiquated rules for over 50 years. I've always wondered, hey, listen, if I still had eligibility left, can I go back to college if I got cut from an NFL team? What's the rule? Where is that hidden rule that guys can't do that? They hid under the guise of professionalism. Well, you're a professional athlete. Ask yourself this. If you're taking a paycheck and you're taking a professional paycheck, like you are, say, at Miami or LSU or Alabama or Georgia or Notre Dame, are you not a professional athlete? Of course you are. This notion that the president of the United States or some of these college commissioners are going to stop this is insane. You're going to get beat in court. That Dallas judge yesterday basically said, hold on here. There's an injunction. And if you bar any of these players from wanting to come back and play, you're going to have to come to a court and explain why they can't. You just can't throw random rules out like the SEC and like the Big Ten are doing. I knew they'd get beat, and they got beat within 24 hours. Now, also ask yourself this: do they really mean it? Or will they be accepting these players back and making their sport better? Look, having professional athletes come back to college football is a good thing. Why? It's going to make their product better. Better players, better performance, better teams. I don't want a kid on my program who maybe got a little taste of professional football playing for me at LSU. Why? I can't wait to see how this plays out. And believe me, a lot of the people who don't like this are people that were set in their ways with those antiquated rules that the National Communist Association of America is getting pounded with right now. Eligibility rules. Man, I'll tell you what, if I was a college kid today, I'd have a Big Sills Pizzeria on a corner in Hialeah down in South Florida, and I'd be down there and I'd have numerous businesses. Kudos to the kids. Kudos to them for making a brand and turning college football into a business. I love it. All right. The game of the year. I've got to retort and respond to Joe Klatt over at Fox. So Joe Klatt obviously knows that this year is going to be a spectacular season, and he's already gone out and picked the most overrated football program in all of college football, and that is Notre Dame to win the national championship. Notre Dame to win the national championship? Well, let's put this in context here. Notre Dame has won 2 national titles in the last 53 years. They won one in 1988 and in 73. And in that process, they played in 2 other national titles, one with Brian Kelly and most recently with Marcus Freeman, and they were beaten. Notre Dame has not been an elite program in a long time. And I heard Joe Klatt say this: Miami is going to get beat in the college playoff by Notre Dame and a more superior program. Last time I checked, since 1981, Miami has an 8-6 record over Notre Dame. Recently beat them last year and beat their doorknobs off and held Jeremiah Love to under 60 yards rushing. And on top of that, I was part of a football team that gave them their worst ass beating in the history of Notre Dame football, 58-7. Lovely. And the next game we played them, it was 24-0. We put up over 80 points against that fraudulent program, Notre Dame. And now Joe Klatt's trying to tell me that Notre Dame is an elite program based on what? Because they were snubbed a year ago? I love the fact that all these Notre Dame homers, they still do it to this day. Notre Dame was snubbed a year ago. Wait a second. Miami beat their ass in the opening game. They held Jeremiah Love, as I said, to under 60 points. When does head-to-head not matter? How can head-to-head not matter? Hey, I beat you, but hey, let's forget about it. That game didn't matter. It was early in the season. Dude, the stupid conversation you have about optics, how about this optic? We beat you. End of story. And now, Joe Klatt's picking Notre Dame to win the national championship because they were snubbed. And Miami's an inferior program to Notre Dame. Really. Hey, I'll tell you what, Joel. I'll see you November 7th in South Bend, where we can go there and make touchdown Jesus take another knee. Thank you very much. Hey, our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the #1 injury law firm in all of America for a reason. Folks, I've been talking about them for over 25 years. This company was made with Ultima and John Morgan, defending families like yours. I told you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement. Or the family in Florida that was initially offered $350,000, got $12 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sills sent you. Absolutely. What great football we have around the corner. Sileo sideline scoop next, right here on
SportsGrid. Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
What Michigan has to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the conference. It's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His height, how hard he could throw it, didn't matter. How do you communicate it? How do you look at these guys in the face? An old 10-year vet, right guard over there, and a 9-year tackle that's been. How you gonna look that old man in the face and convince him, hey guys, we're gonna get ready to go down the field. We're gonna score here. Because that's what the great ones do. They walk in the huddle and everybody goes, okay, it's time, let's go.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Exhibition season is coming to a close this week. We'll know the teams on Sunday when the 53-man rosters will be set. Then the practice squads will be set on Monday. Some storylines heading into the final exhibition weekend. Obviously, maybe there is a quarterback in Cleveland. I mean, Dillon Gabriel went out and had a hell of a game last night and was 12 of 15, put up 3 touchdowns in the game. But obviously, the storylines or that pathetic Deshaun Watson and the not qualified quarterback in Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. Todd Monken maybe has the quarterback in Dillon Gabriel right there in front of him that should be the starting quarterback. Hey, I don't care about a social media dude in Shedeur Sanders, and I don't care about a guy who's got low character in Deshaun Watson, who doesn't care about the fan base or doesn't really care where he is. I would ask this question to Deshaun Watson. Do you even know you play for the Browns? Or is this more about Deshaun Watson? Todd Monken's got a quarterback there. And unfortunately, he's the third guy because you know why? There's a media story going on in Cleveland. You got a $230 million loser when it comes to Watson, and you got a guy who's being pushed by the media, guys like Mel Kiper, who think this guy should have been the number 1 overall selection in the draft 2 years ago. It's Shedeur Sanders. And maybe underneath your nose right now, maybe you do have a starting quarterback in Dillon Gabriel. That's something that you should be focusing on as well. Hey, I got to say this too. Last night, the Rams. You know, I was very critical of the Rams' 13th overall selection in Ty Simpson, kid out of Alabama. I was like, what are the Rams doing? You're on the cusp of potentially winning the Super Bowl. You went out and you got Myles Garrett. You went out and you got Trent McDuffie. And you go out and you draft in the first round a quarterback instead of bringing in another high-powered wide receiver for Matthew Stafford. I'm like, this kid got benched in the Rose Bowl. He did not look that good when he was at Alabama. They took him in the first round. What do I know? The quarterback whisperer in Sean McVay has done a spectacular job. This kid looks like the deal. This kid looks like maybe he's going to be the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford. You know, the one thing that the Rams do, hell, the Rams do a ton of good things, but one of the great things that the Rams do, they don't look at those first-round draft choices unless there's something there for their football team to help them in the future. And I got to tell you, think of it. Last 11 drafts, they've only used their first-round pick 3 times. And now, Ty Simpson's one of those guys. Sean McVay, once again, is getting another quarterback and doing great things with him. Let's not forget what Jared Goff looked like with Jeff Fisher. This guy was a clipboard holder. He goes in there, takes that kid to a Super Bowl, right? Didn't think he was good enough. Goes out and gets Matthew Stafford and gets one of the premier signal callers in all the pro football game and brings in Stafford, and they end up going out and winning a Super Bowl. Maybe he's got this here again with Ty Simpson here. Got to say this, man. Fernando Mendoza is struggling. He is struggling. Now, is it the Raiders? Fernando Mendoza. I made this comment to you that I'm rooting for him and I'm pulling for the South Florida kid to go out and really have a great career. But I also did tell you this. He's either going to be one of the greatest success stories in the history of the NFL draft, or I got a feeling he could be one of the biggest busts in the history of the draft. I really don't have a read on the kid. I think the kid's got great intangibles. I think he's a leader. I think he's absolutely a guy that you want to try to give an opportunity to. But ask yourself this: environment. How much does the environment matter? You might want to ask Sam Darnold that when it comes to the environment. Sam Darnold was put in horrible environments. The Jets, Carolina. He ends up going to San Francisco. And I remember Kyle Shanahan even saying this: Sam Darnold can play. Then Sam Darnold goes to Minnesota. He goes 14-3. Then he goes to Seattle, goes 14-3 again. Counting the playoffs, he's 31-6 with a Super Bowl win and 3-1 in the postseason. Environment matters. This is the Raiders. The Raiders have not been relevant since the early 2000s when they went to a Super Bowl and played against that Bucs team. Outside of that, the Raiders have not been relevant. Mark Davis has been, without a doubt, the Daniel Snyder of the West Coast when it comes to running that great franchise. There was a time in Raider history when the Raiders had the winningest percentage in all of pro football, and there was absolutely a commitment to excellence. The commitment to excellence was all about winning and hitting the quarterback hard. Now, it's not. That is just a shell of a franchise on what it once was. Make no mistake about that. As we said, the 53-man roster will be set. Week 3 schedule of football games. We're going to see some games here tonight. We're going to see the Bengals and the Eagles playing tonight. Who's going to be the backup quarterback is probably the storyline there. Arizona, Green Bay. Carson Beck really hasn't had a shot to play because he's been injured since the Hall of Fame game. What's Green Bay going to do? Kansas City and Seattle. That'll be an interesting one, especially with both these teams trying to fill out the back end of their 53-man roster. I really like the job that Kellen Moore is doing in New Orleans. Dallas has got to try to figure out who they're going to play at CB2, cornerback 2. Minnesota, Denver, they've got to figure out again who's going to be the backup quarterback. Is it going to be that stiff J.J. McCarthy, or is it going to be Carson Wentz? And then you have the battle for New York, the battle for horrible. That's the New York Giants and the New York Jets. The battle, you know what we should start calling this? The Jimmy Hoffa Trophy. The winner of this game gets the Jimmy Hoffa Trophy. The New York Giants versus the New York Jets. Buccaneers and Jags. I don't know what to read on the Jags coming off that great year they had a year ago with Liam Cohen as their head football coach. And Todd Bowles, he seemingly blamed everybody a year ago except for himself when it came to the team's meltdown late in the year. I also happen to think I'm going to be interesting to see how the Bucs are going to respond this year without Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mike Evans was a leader of that football team, and he was not too happy with what went on a year ago with that program. Houston and Carolina. I got to tell you, I love what Dave Canales is doing with the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young seemingly has turned it back around again, and we'll see. Houston and Nick Caserio, their general manager, I got to tell you, I believe that they're starting to see some good things with that roster. And boy, I'll tell you what, I love Will Anderson Jr. I said this 2 years ago. I thought he'd be a better pass rusher and a better football player than Micah Parsons. That was 2.5 years ago. I think he's on his way right now. Make no mistake about it. Miami, Atlanta, and then you got Baltimore and Washington. Washington right now is a mash unit. And make no mistake about it, they've lost so many guys in their offensive line, and they've got to protect Jaden Daniels if they are going to do anything in the NFC East. All right. Hey, maybe guess what? Eric Bieniemy was needed more in Kansas City than we thought. I want to hit on that next, right here on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His height, how hard he could throw it, didn't matter. How do you communicate it? How do you look at these guys in the face? An old 10-year vet, right guard over there, and a 9-year tackle that's been. How you gonna look that old man in the face and convince him, hey guys, we're gonna get ready to go down the field. We're gonna score here. Because that's what the great ones do. They walk in the huddle and everybody goes, okay, it's time, let's go.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
All right, folks, you know what? I got to tell you here. So many times we see this and we get an opportunity to comment on coaching and how much coaching matters. Well, take a look at the last 2 years in Kansas City without Eric Bieniemy for Patrick Mahomes. How much of an influence? Remember, people were saying, hey, he's just a clipboard holder. He's a guy that really has no influence over the play of a quarterback. It's more Andy Reid. And I'm not saying that Andy Reid doesn't have the influence over the player when it comes to designing plays and putting that offense into a place for them to have great success. But I'm going to tell you, assistant coaches matter. You know, there was a situation a couple years ago when they were on the sidelines, the both of them, Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy, and he didn't like a play that was being called. And Eric Bieniemy took his headsets off, handed them to Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid came over and separated both guys. Sometimes you have to have that middleman and that guy in the middle to do what? Do you know what it is to tell a superstar player like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, no? How many of the great athletes have we ever seen have a great coach or manager next to them? How about Phil Jackson in Chicago? Hey, Mike, you can win scoring titles all you want. Hey, Mike, you can have all the points. But guess what? If you don't involve the rest of your team, we're not going to win NBA championships. Michael Jordan never won another NBA scoring title ever again once Phil Jackson became the starter, the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. How about when Tiger had Steve Williams on his bag? Tiger, that's a bad club. Don't take that club. Use this club. Tiger had a guy say no to him. Pick a great coach. Joe Montana. Bill Walsh, Joe, this is the play we need to run. Every single superstar player that has ever been a success. How about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady? Tom, what are you doing? How about the times on the sidelines with Bill O'Brien? Both those guys are screaming at one another. Or he's talking crap to Josh McDaniels. All the greats had one guy in the building that always said this to them. No. You know, I don't know why LeBron James is 4-6 in the postseason. Because nobody told him no, except for one coach. And that coach was Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley. That's why he didn't want to be around that. Because those guys would have put more legendary titles around LeBron James's name if he just would have stuck with the best basketball coach in the game today. That is Eric Spoelstra and the great Pat Riley. When you have people like that, in your life. I had Jimmy Johnson when I was at the University of Miami and in Dallas. We knew all the time where we stood. You are not doing this. You need to do this. And when you got a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who everybody laughed at, sometimes, listen, guys like that don't become great head football coaches, but their value is dealing with players. Mahomes has not been the same player the last 2 years. He's just not been. He's been injured. He's been underperforming in many ways. And again, too, obviously the roster is not the same that it was 5 years ago. How about this? When Eric Bieniemy was there as the offensive coordinator, they went to the AFC Championship game every year he was the OC in Kansas City. And the last year, they did not go. Mahomes gets hurt. They were under 500 at the beginning of the season, and they didn't have that voice in the building saying no. Because Andy is a great coach. Andy Reid is, without a doubt, will go down as one of the greatest signal callers, play callers of all time. And without a doubt, the way he constructed that roster with Brett Veach, their general manager, has been second to none. But when you have great assistant coaches, I use this example all the time with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy had the same assistant coaches that I had at Miami when we won national titles that he had when he won Super Bowls in Dallas. Every single one of them. You think there's any coincidence that every single one of those players followed him from Oklahoma State to Miami to the Dallas Cowboys? Tony Weiss, the great O-line coach. Dave Wannstedt, Butch Davis. All those coaches, Dave Campo, they didn't turn out to be really great NFL head coaches, but they were especially assistant coaches that were just off the charts and great. Because you know why? They knew how to deal with players, and they knew how to get the best out of their players. That's the mark of a great coach, in my opinion, constructing a great staff. And when sometimes the public looks at it, hey, Eric Bieniemy was just a clipboard holder. I think Kansas City's going to bounce back this year with Eric Bieniemy and with Patrick Mahomes. And I expect a big season from Kansas City. Don't be shocked if they end up winning the AFC West. That's going to be a competitive conference and a competitive division with the Chiefs, Broncos, and, again, with the Chargers. It's going to be great. We're going to talk with the great Brad Nessler. College football, where is it today? Pros going back? He's next here on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His height, how hard he could throw it, didn't matter. How do you communicate it? How do you look at these guys in the face? An old 10-year vet, right guard over there, and a 9-year tackle that's been. How you gonna look that old man in the face and convince him, hey guys, we're gonna get ready to go down the field. We're gonna score here. Because that's what the great ones do. They walk in the huddle and everybody goes, okay, it's time, let's go.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, I got to tell you, college football is in a wild place right now, and it is the wild, wild west. And a man who has been involved in college sports for such a long time, and he is our friend Brad Nessler. And Brad, I got to tell you, have you ever seen anything in your life? Did you ever think when they opened up the floodgates and took the genie out of the bottle, when they wanted to pay athletes, we'd be here as we ready for another college football season?
It's insane, Dan. It is, even when it started 4 or 5 years ago, I thought, well, they're going to have some sort of guidelines on this or, some sort of salary cap or whatever. I never expected, $8 million contracts for kids playing college football, maybe more than that in some cases. Your guy down in Miami's making a lot of sense. It's crazy. It's day to day. It's hour to hour. I might get done talking to you and find out there's been a judge's ruling. You're coming back to play. You got eligibility, don't you? I don't know. So back through the portal comes Sileo. He's on that defensive line. That'd be great.
Absolutely, Brad. And I got to tell you, I see high school kids now with $2.1 million nil deals, and there's a list of these high school kids. Do you think it's in a good place right now, though? I mean, Brad, here's one thing. The one thing that I do think that nil is helping college football. You're keeping the kids in school longer because, again, if you can make more money, I'm going to stay instead of being a fourth or fifth rounder. So there's a little bit of a sidebar to that, hey, look, if you're against the money, I get it. But it does make the product better when you keep the kids in school more, does it not? Do you think it's in a good place right now?
Yeah, I think the product's in a great place. I think the whole system's in a screwed up place. I think the product, when you get down and, you start this Saturday and you start watching football, you go, wow, it's back and it's as good as ever, maybe better. And you're right, especially even with college basketball, you keep guys around 5 years and you get those backcourts that have two senior, guards, and you got front court people that have maybe been around a little bit, but they played together a lot. That helps the product for sure. I just think when we say, 5 to play 5, how many years are you going to school? We never even talk about that anymore. I mean, I very seldom go into a players meeting and say, what are you majoring in? And they look at me like I'm crazy, and they go, well, all my classes are online or whatever. I don't know if they ever go to school. But, the product's great. I just think it's the rest of it's kind of a mess. The conferences are running the show, not the NCAA. And the judges now are running everything, wherever you might be and whatever the ruling might be. So it's a day-to-day bizarre scenario right now. But like I said, when you get to the stadium and, you do your tailgating and you come in and you watch the game itself, it's a pretty good product, I think. And maybe even getting better, like you said, because when you get what Indiana did last year and now everybody thinks they can do that. And that's probably never going to happen again. But, you do bring in a lot of talent. And if you've got a lot of experience, if you had guys that have played 40 games, I don't care if it was in, Division II, and all of a sudden they come into a situation where they fit the system. You got guys that are, 22 playing guys that are 18. You're going to win with the 22-year-olds.
Brad, do you think government intervention needs to take place somehow, somewhere? Because, again, every state, every program, is going to be under a different jurisdiction because of those state laws. How do you bring that all together? Do they need to be unionized? Do they need to have one commissioner? How would you put guardrails around this if you can?
I don't know, Dan. I mean, I guess they're coming back, coming back in September for the vote in Senate or Congress, whatever the case might be, to save Sports Act. I don't know if they're saving anything or if they're just screwing it up worse. I don't know the legalese of all this stuff. So I get lost in all of that. And to be quite frank with you, I think fans should forget about it. Hard to, because you lose players to another team and pissed off about that. And so-and-so went someplace else to make more money, and that made my team weaker. And I get it from a fan standpoint, but then the fans that are getting those guys are going, man, this is awesome. But, without antitrust laws and all that, I don't know how they're going to fix it. And I don't know what the Great American Save Sports Act, Trump or whatever, beats me. I don't really know.
How about this, Brad? Do you think the same environment, like you just mentioned, you go to Auburn or you go to Alabama or you go to any one of those programs like Georgia in between the hedges. You think the same environment is there? You think there's more pressure today? Do you think it's still like even when I played back in the day? Because going to Florida Field was a wild place. Going to
Right.
Athens is a wild place. Is it still that same environment when you show up on Saturdays?
I think it is. I think it is. I think the only thing that is kind of sad about it, and it's because of the portal. You used to go and you went to Michigan, and the Michigan guys are all wearing, Michigan leather jackets, the old block M, the old leather sleeves, the whole thing. You don't really see a lot of that right now because they might have come in from somewhere else, and they had all Oregon swag, and now they got to change. So that part's different. For the fans, went to Alabama, you went to Georgia. It's the fervor. I mean, I'm getting together with some buddies tonight at the local dive, and they're all Georgia fans. Well, with the exception of a couple of Auburn guys. But they're so fired up for the season to start. They're just chomping at the bit. So from the fan standpoint, I think the atmosphere when you get there, everybody asks me, what's your favorite stadium or what's your favorite setting or, your favorite game to do, whatever. And I always say, hey, my favorite stadium is the one I'm in that day because I don't care if it's got 110,000 people, it's 5 to 110,000 people, and the atmosphere and the electricity is the same.
I got to tell you, Brad, I mean, going back to the days when we played at the Orange Bowl and we'd have all those teams come down and play us, there's nothing like a Saturday afternoon of college football. And I just hope that that's the one thing that we don't end up losing. And, there was something that went down this week where you're starting to see professional guys now with eligibility left getting an opportunity to go back to college. I mean, and guess who's spearheading this? Obviously, it's the guy at LSU. It's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Probably the most hated guy right now in college football. And I think that but I actually think that brings a gravitas to it too, a little bit too. And I think every sport needs a villain. What's your takeaway on what you heard this week with the potential of that? And a judge ruled yesterday that the injunction is in place for those kids to go back and play. Yeah. Where are you on this?
Well, you and I are old school. We go back to where if you ever sniffed with an agent, you were ineligible. And if you signed with an agent, you were ineligible. If Todd Gurley, I remember back here in Georgia a few years ago, signed a few jerseys and they found out and he got suspended. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's so archaic to think of that stuff now. But, I think if you go pro and you say, I'm going pro, and you make that declaration, I don't get it on the coming back thing. I mean, I understand from those players' standpoint, they want to come back and they want to play at LSU and they're going to make, $1 million when they just got cut from an NFL team that probably gave them $45,000 or something to sign. So I get it from the monetary standpoint, but I don't like it that you come back and you got 105 roster count and two guys come back that are 23 years old and already been in an NFL camp and played in a preseason game 2 weeks ago can come back and you got to drop one of the guys that's worked their ass off, through spring and summer and everything. That's maybe a 19-year-old kid that going, man, I'm a walk-on, but I'm going to make the team, eventually. That's not fair to those guys. So, from that standpoint, I think once you're a pro, you're a pro, and that's it.
Yeah, see, to me, I'm with you. I'm not really hating the player, Brad. I'm hating the game. And I think there needs to be, obviously, some come to Jesus conversation about this and how you can really put these guardrails around that, because I happen to agree with that. I'm like, hey, again, kid coming back, I mean, what's the parameters going to be? I want to talk more with Brad Nessler. I want to get his thought on who he thinks is going to win the national championship in college football. We'll do that next with the great Brad Nessler from CBS Sports right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
How much much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, I'll tell you, winning a national championship today versus when I played, I think it's more difficult to win a national championship today. I mean, I got a couple of national championship trophies at the University of Miami, and the gauntlet of teams that these players have to go through now when you get to that college football playoff, plus the recruiting. I mean, if you're a high school kid today, getting a scholarship, now with the portal there, Brad Nessler joins us here again for another segment here. And Brad, it's got to be tougher to win a national title today than it was back in my day. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think with everybody playing 9 games in their conference for the most part, I think that is, kind of up the ante. It's made some of the non-conference games not so good, but, you can talk all you want about Indiana having, 3 cupcakes to start the season. Well, that warmed them up, and then nobody else barely touched them after that. So, yeah, I think it's tough going 16-0. It didn't used to be 16 games either. Don't have to go through the college football playoff situation. So if you went 12-0 or 11-1, and the polls were voting for you, whatever the case might be, that was a heck of a lot easier than playing basically an NFL schedule almost. If you're going to get to that point to get to the 16th game, but it's tough all around. I think the teams that are always going to be up there, the ones that have the most money and the ones that have the biggest names, I don't think we're ever going to see. If we get to a 2014 playoff, I would bet my mortgage, and I don't have one, I own this place, but I would say that the 24th ranked team's not going to win the national championship. So you can have all the playoff extras you want, and it's still going to be the same 10 teams that got a chance to win.
So we're basically in the era of the Dodgers in college football. You spend the most money, you're going to win the national title, right? So the Ohio States, now the Miamis, believe it or not, that are starting to shovel this money. And you mentioned Darian Mensah making $6.5 million to be a starting quarterback. He makes more money than a starting quarterback at Arizona when it comes to the Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett, which is insane. So it's really coming down just to the finances and the money that's being generated. So you're only going to see basically the top 25 programs, right, Brad, win a national championship because that's where the money is.
Absolutely. Texas Tech's going to spend and spend and spend and spend. Ohio State's going to spend and spend. Texas is, everybody's in that 40 is low right now. Everybody's in that $50 million range that thinks they have a chance to win the whole thing. And that's what's going to keep happening because the best players are going to go where they're going to get the best deals. And, talking about Darian Mensah is a great example. I did their bowl game last year, the Sun Bowl, and he's such a nice kid and everything. And the other 2 or 3 kids, we had players in there, they were all Duke. And I go, well, you're coming back next year to Duke, right? And he looked at me and said, absolutely, sir. And I looked at Jenny Dell and I went, yeah, right. There's going to be a better offer out there someplace. So, yeah, that's kind of what it's come down to, which I don't know if that's good or bad. But if you got a team that's got a lot of money and a lot of donors and high-end people, like at Texas Tech or Indiana or wherever it might be, you got the best shot.
Absolutely. Mark Cuban's now rifling money into that Bloomington program now. So
Yeah.
What do you like this year, Brad? I mean, maybe 3 teams, maybe a couple teams. Who's the team that you're circling right now to potentially win the national championship?
Well, it might be because I have them their first game, and I probably have them 4 other times, but I'm taking Oregon. I think they're built for it right now. I think their front four is the best front four in college football. The linebacking core is great. The secondary got better when they added Coy Parrish, a kid that was all Big Ten at Minnesota, kind of like when they brought in Thieneman last year from Purdue and he became a number 1 draft choice. Their secondary got a lot better there. 2 really good running backs that are both capable of 1,000, I think. Great receiving core, and they got Dante Moore. And I think Dante Moore is the best quarterback in the country. And that's not slighting Julian Sand or Arch Manning or, I could go down the list. I just had him enough last year, and I think he would have been definitely a first-round draft choice had he come out, decided to stay, which I think is a pretty good move. And then it's just Dan Lanning and the coaching staff. The only thing I worry about with them is changing both coordinators. They lost Will Stein to Kentucky as a head coach and Tosh Lapoy to California as a head coach. So they bring in guys from the staff so they know what's going on. But they've got the facilities, they've got Phil Knight, they got the money, they got talent at every spot. I mean, I think a vast majority of these guys that are starters right now are going to play in the NFL. And there was something that came out the other day about the Georgia team from 2021 or something. There's still like 30 guys playing in the NFL off that roster. I mean, you put that kind of talent together, if you don't have major injuries and all of that. But I'm going to take Oregon. But I will tell you, Dan, I would say get back to me like about midnight on the second week of the season after Texas plays Ohio State. See what happens in that one, and then we'll see how the rankings get shuffled and who's going to do what. A lot of big ball games in the first month of the season. It'll tell the tale.
Absolutely. Oh, let me take you to those guys up at South Bend, Notre Dame. What do you make of those guys this year? Do you think they have the talent? And I got to tell you, it's hard for a Miami guy like me not to root for Marcus Freeman. I really like the coach. I think he's been an upgrade. I mean, they're over Brian Kelly, and he's actually put that program at another level, I think. They're going to be, obviously, that November 7th game with Miami is going to be a tell-all game. But where do you see them, Brad?
Well, if you have a quarterback, you got a chance. And C.J. Carr is going to be a Heisman candidate, and he's going to be a star. Losing the 2 backs they lost, those guys were unbelievable. But they tell me they got replacements for them. And I'm with you on Marcus. He's one of my favorite guys, not just one of my favorite coaches. I've known him since he and James Laurinaitis were inseparable at Ohio State, that linebacking core they had. And I've known those guys forever, and I've seen him socially. He's done an unbelievable job. If he wins the national championship, he might not be Notre Dame's coach next year, but because the NFL really likes him too. He's liked by just more than me and you, that's for sure.
Boy, I'll tell you, here a spot that I thought that he was going to land at, and man, for me, I think he ends up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a couple years and coaching that franchise, and he's going to be there maybe for another 20 years like we saw with what Tomlin and with Cowher and with Noel. I think he's just a superstar on the horizon. Hey, 20 seconds. Are you going to be still in the picture?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. Yeah, see how good Josh Hoover is, but their transfer portal thing's been unbelievable. And losing the 2 receivers they lost, but they got one coming in from Michigan State. They got the big guy that was their possession receiver is going to be a star, I think. They added big-time depth to the backfield. Their linebacking core lost 1 All-American, but they still got 2 possible All-Americans there. Yeah, they're going to be good, and they're going to be probably 6-0 before you know it, and then we'll see what happens after that.
You got it. Who would have thought Indiana? Back in the day, Indiana. No. Now, wow. Brad, thank you, my friend. Final thoughts next here on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His height, how hard he could throw it, didn't matter. How do you communicate it? How do you look at these guys in the face? An old 10-year vet, right guard over there, and a 9-year tackle that's been. How you gonna look that old man in the face and convince him, hey guys, we're gonna get ready to go down the field. We're gonna score here. Because that's what the great ones do. They walk in the huddle and everybody goes, okay, it's time, let's go.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
All right, after this week, we're going to see National Football League football in about a week and a half. A little later this year, like we get going here on September 13th on a Sunday. We have Wednesday and Thursday football, obviously. Pro football is without a doubt the number one engine that's driving all these networks today. Pro football is now become America's pastime. Make no mistake about it. Look at the storylines that are heading into this year. What's the Dallas Cowboys going to do with Dak Prescott? 10 years now, Dak Prescott has been a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys have not been able to get to a conference championship game in nearly 30 years. And they open up with the New York Football Giants. The opening week of the National Football League, look at this here. You've got the New England Patriots and the Seahawks opening up on September 9th, Wednesday. That's going to be a rematch of the Super Bowl. Obviously, storylines there, the whole Diana Rossini thing. Plus, you have what's going on in Seattle. Will Seattle be able to replace Clint Kubiak? Is Sam Darnold going to turn back into a pumpkin again? We'll see. Then, of course, you have the Thursday game in Australia with San Francisco and with the Rams. The Rams have, without a doubt, the best roster in all of pro football. Make no mistake, this is the team to beat. But just because you have all the horses and you have all the players that you think you're going to need to win a national championship and to win a football title, folks, the Rams are going to go out to play, and they're going to have to go out and play each and every single week because that football team, just because you have the best roster, doesn't traditionally mean you're going to win a Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers, too, another storyline this year. The storyline is we just had an owner who got popped for chasing down prostitutes. You had a head coach who was in a car accident earlier in the summer, and you're like, where are the San Francisco 49ers going? One thing is for sure, I believe Kyle Shanahan is one of the better coaches in all of pro football. Make no mistake about it. Buccaneers will take on Cincinnati. That'll be a fantastic opening game because we're going to find out if the Cincinnati Bengals are for real, and Mike Brown did enough this year by going out and getting Dexter Lawrence, taking him away from the New York Giants and putting him in the middle of that defense. What's been the storyline in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow? It's been the fact that Mike Brown, the owner of the team, has never wanted to really spend any money. So what they did, they went out and they spent the money. They brought in Dexter Lawrence. They gave him that contract extension. They went out and got themselves some players on that side of the ball. This might be the year that Joe Burrow gets back to a Super Bowl and maybe wins it. That Buccaneer team, Like I said, I keep an eye on them, obviously having played for them. I think a motivated Baker Mayfield is without a doubt a better motivated Baker Mayfield. When that guy is motivated, make no mistake, he goes out and gives you the best football he possibly can. And with them not giving him a contract, and Jason Light and the Bucs offering him only a 2-year contract extension, Mayfield's betting on himself. He's basically auditioning 17 weeks of football for another football team to come in after the offseason and potentially bring Baker Mayfield to that respected football team. I'm looking forward to seeing what Baker shows up this year in 2026. One of the other teams, there's so many teams this year that have great storylines. The Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, without a doubt, has been in a situation with Nick Caserio, the general manager, and with DeMeco Ryans, the head football coach. That football team has so many fabulous, talented players on that team. There are so many great players on that defensive side of the football. The Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, new stadium. Josh has got to win some football games that matter in the postseason. Chicago, what will the Bears do? They open up against Carolina. That'll be a pretty good matchup, those two teams facing each other. And what will Chicago do for the encore with Ben Johnson, their head football coach? Are they going to be able to elevate, again, and get the best out of Caleb Williams for that Chicago Bears team to be able to win another division title? Let's do this here. No quarterback in the history of the Chicago Bears has ever thrown for 4,000 yards. They haven't had an all-pro quarterback there in nearly 65 years, going back to Sid Luckman. It's about time that the Bears got themselves a quarterback that could carry them back to a Super Bowl like Jim McMahon did back in the early 80s. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I'm looking forward to seeing also what this Philadelphia Eagles team is going to do with a new offensive coordinator who's never play called in his entire career. And the Super Bowl window for the Eagles is starting to close. That football team loses A.J. Brown, and now they've got to go in with a new offensive coordinator against Washington in the opening week in a divisional matchup. We shall see what this football team ends up doing this year. So many great storylines. It is great to see the National Football League getting back to business. College football this weekend. Can't wait for this weekend's game. Southern Cal is on the docket. We're going to see UNC and TCU in week 0. We'll be back on Sunday with you. Have a good one, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His height, how hard he could throw it, didn't matter. How do you communicate it? How do you look at these guys in the face? An old 10-year vet, right guard over there, and a 9-year tackle that's been. How you gonna look that old man in the face and convince him, hey guys, we're gonna get ready to go down the field. We're gonna score here. Because that's what the great ones do. They walk in the huddle and everybody goes, okay, it's time, let's go.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
World of